Joining us now to talk about inflation and all that's going on with the economy is someone whose work we have really relied upon here, Heather Long. She's economics correspondent for the Washington Post. Great to have you, Heather. Welcome.
Good to see you, Heather.
Hey, thank you. Hi.
Could you just give us an overview, and I think we have your latest piece here that we can throw up on the screen about inflation. If we can put that element up on the screen, guys. Uncomfortable inflation is here and it is changing the economy. American families and businesses are altering their habits as they increasingly believe high prices are here to stay. Give us, Heather, just an overview of where we stand with regards to inflation and what goods in particular are driving those numbers.
Yeah, it's really astounding. Obviously, we have inflation, depending upon which measure you look at, that's at a 13-year high, or in some cases, if you look at some of the other gauges, you could even argue it's at over a 20-year high. So people are feeling it. I was really stunned to see the latest CNBC polling that shows that people are as concerned in America about inflation now as they are about the coronavirus. And a lot of that reason they're so concerned is just what you said. People are feeling it in so many areas. You know, it used to be in the spring and summer, everybody was talking about the used car prices and the lumber prices soaring. Well, If you weren't buying a used car, maybe you didn't feel it. But now we just see inflation across the board. Not only do we see it in furniture and appliances and TVs, but it's also food price inflation is very high. Almost any kind of protein, any kind of meat, or even eggs you would buy at the store up about 10%. And the one that really worries me, of course, people are focused on those gas prices up about $1 from a year ago. But the one that really worries me is rent prices have taken off. They are near a 20-year high in many parts of the country. And this time around, it's not being driven by New York and San Francisco, the big coastal cities. The really big surges are in places that we used to think of as affordable, like Phoenix, Arizona, or Boise, Idaho, or Spokane, Washington. So it's just getting harder and harder. If you're a working class family, those gas prices are up, food prices, hard to get any sort of rental right now. And there just seems to be no end in sight to this. And that's really my main concern in that piece. The era of uncomfortable inflation is here. Whether it stays at 5%, I don't know, but it's certainly going to be well above that 2% we're used to.
So what's the cause, Heather? That's really what it all comes down to. We've tried to cover a lot of the stuff of what you're discussing, the supply chain crisis, obviously, with used cars as well. You know, microchips get involved. Then we have the port backlog. We have a trucking thing. What is the cause of some of the most significant inflation that we see for the pocketbook of those who are middle-class Americans?
Well, you're absolutely right that the number one cause right now is these supply chain backlogs that you just outlined really well. And that's what's freaking people out. Can they get their holiday gifts? But also, we're starting to see some people rushing to get toilet paper again in some parts of America, or alcohol has run short, various types of liquors, because they just can't restock the shelves enough in most parts of the country. It's almost a joke if you order something like a couch right now. It's at least 6 months wait. But I think for me, what's really worrying, obviously the supply chain issues are likely to linger, at least we're hearing through summer of 2022. So we've got over a half a year more of this. But I think the bigger problem is we're starting to see some other drivers of inflation picking up. And what I mean by that is we're starting to see restaurants aggressively raise prices, or home goods aggressively raise prices because of the supply chain, but also because they're having to pay their workers more. Some of those labor shortage issues are now feeding through into inflation. Similarly, a lot of those housing price woes are now feeding through into those higher rent prices. And so those things are not temporary. The White House and the Federal Reserve loves to say, hey, it's short term, it's temporary, it's transitory. But when you start to see, even if they can clear those supply chain backlogs, these labor shortage issues and the rising rents are going to linger.
Well, and this is where things get interesting, right? Because one man's labor shortage issue is another man's ability to earn a higher wage, or as you've documented, leave a job they really didn't like and go somewhere else and earn a lot more money, or potentially go on strike and bargain for better conditions. So how do we square the fact that on the one hand, things actually seem pretty good for workers. You have people who feel confident enough to leave their jobs. You do see wages that have been stagnant for decades starting to increase. You see a lot of activity, whether it's at John Deere or IATSE threatening to strike. You see a lot of sort of labor activity that also signals that workers feel like they can bargain here for a better deal. And on the other hand, you have a plurality of Americans who are worried about a recession, who believe a recession is coming in the next year. You have these supply chain issues. You've got inflation spiking. So how do you make sense of this overall picture that seems to be a real mixed bag for people?
It is, and it's a good word, mixed bag. It's certainly, I called it, I think in a piece in early September, the I don't know economy. We've just not seen these funky dynamics that we're in right now. And it's not clear how it's all going to end or even what the right policy response should be from Washington and other parts of the world. The European Central Bank is meeting this week as well. So it is a very confusing time. And I just go back to first principles in the sense that you're right. It's a good sign that these wages are finally picking up. Particularly, I look at restaurant, grocery store workers. For the first time in U.S. history, the average pay for those workers is above $15 an hour. That happened over the summer. Basically, 15 is almost de facto the minimum wage in the United States right now. Many workers say they won't even look at a job that doesn't pay at least $15 an hour. So, but the big but there is if you look, those wage increases, as great as they are almost entirely wiped out by rising inflation. So the optimistic scenario is usually when prices go up, wages go up, they don't get cut later. It's not like we're going to hit March and those wages are going to go from $15 back to $13. So wages, when they go up, usually stay up. And the hope is that inflation will eventually come back down a little bit. But again, whether that's going to come back down enough is my big concern for people to really feel like they're finally getting ahead in 2022.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the question. When do you think that we'll know and have the answers kind of definitively? Will it be a year from now, 2 years from now? Does it depend more on COVID? Is it the White House? Who are the actual key players who are going to be determinants here?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the key thing to watch is definitely what's going on with the supply chain. Certainly there was some sighs of relief on Wall Street, even just in the last few hours, as finally we're starting to see a little bit of come off on some of those shipping costs. They are still astronomically high compared to where they were even in the spring or last winter, but they have come off a little bit from the September all-time record highs that we saw. So in that sense, there's maybe a little bit of sign of hope that at least it may not get worse in the coming months. But certainly, when does it really get better? When are we back to something that looks more normal? Again, a lot of CEOs now are saying that won't happen until summer 2022. So I think we won't really know a lot until we get through the holiday season. It's clearly going to be a crunch. And can we work things out in the spring, which tends to be a little bit slower shipping period?
Right.
And Heather, finally, one of the things that I wanted to get from you is you have been tracking the Great Resignation, the number of, historic number of workers who are leaving their jobs and switching industries and some of the dynamics and trends that are behind that. How much of that is attributable to, I saw a quote where someone said, when you realize your boss during a pandemic will literally kill you or sacrifice your life, that changes your relationship to that employment. And in fact, we do see workers disproportionately leaving retail, restaurant work, those sort of frontline essential nursing, nursing home workers that was the most dangerous industry in the country last year. So you see a lot of workers moving out of those industries that were really forced onto the front lines. How much do you think a sort of pandemic rethinking of what their employment was accounts for this big shift in workers?
I think this is a huge, huge factor. I've been writing about this since the spring. This is the biggest shakeup in the labor market that we've seen since World War II. And what I mean by that is this pandemic has affected everyone. We've had over 700,000 deaths in this country. It's affected high-wage workers, low-wage workers, all different types of communities across the U.S. And it also, a lot of restaurant workers, when you ask them, why are you quitting now? They say two things. They say, number one, the pandemic, when I was off for a bit on unemployment, it was the first time in my life I really slowed down, that I had a minute to think, what do I want in my life? Is this what I want to be doing? Is this how I want to do my family? I call it YOLO on steroids. You only live once on steroids. Sure, we all knew you should seize the day and all that kind of advice, but to have that time finally to be able to really think about it, I think has galvanized people. The other key thing that I hear right now, and I just want to say one of the numbers really quickly, over 30 million people have quit their jobs so far this year. That was through August. We have the data through August. If we continue at roughly that pace, we will end the year with over 45 million people quitting their job. We have just never seen anything close to this. But it's not just quits. We have millions more people retiring early. And on a positive side, we have an uptick in people starting new businesses, almost near a 30-year high in starting new businesses. So we see people making these decisions in so many different areas. And the other thing I hear, which you really went to the heart of, is burnout. I was talking to a server yesterday in Memphis, Tennessee, and he said to me, not only is the job harder now than it used to be because we don't have enough staff, so we're all waiting more tables, but he said to me, I was just stunned to hear this. He said, you wouldn't believe it. The number of people who are under tipping right now are leaving 0 tips. It's just all of these factors are coming together and people are saying, I've had enough.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which are really amazing. Well, Heather, we want to thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Congratulations on your new, is it a promotion? I don't know. Move within the Washington Post to the columns. We will absolutely be having you on again and reading with great earnest. We use your work all the time. So thank you. We really
Thanks, Heather. Great to have you.
Thank you. Take care.
Our pleasure.
Absolutely. And thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate it. It's just awesome to do this show every day. And, we've been ending the show this way for a reason, but we consistently see wild swings in our YouTube revenue, and that just makes it so that we can't plan as a business. We have great improvements that we want to do. The only thing we can rely on are you, the premium subscribers, so we really appreciate you. Anytime that you guys join and you can support us, we have some awesome, awesome technological developments to debut next week, and I really can't wait for you guys to see it. It's been in the work for months and months and months, and
you
it's
guys
only
made possible.
It's only possible because of the lifetime members, because of all of the monthly, yearly, everything. Your guys' support gives us the assurance that we can go out and spend a lot of money in order to improve this show, to make it widely available for as many people as humanly possible. So
that is absolutely right. We appreciate you guys every single day. We think about you every day when we're crafting the show too. Hope you have a great day. We'll have some stuff for you tomorrow and a full show back for you on Thursday. We'll see you then.
See you Thursday.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.